Director, Process Chemistry, MSD. She's leading the cross-functional, cross-divisional green and sustainable science team at Merck, a former co-chair of the American Chemical Society Green Chemistry Institute Pharmaceutical Roundtable. Dr. Mergelsberg has been very active in green chemistry initiative, both at Merck internally as well as externally. Dr. Mergelsberg also leads the Green Chemistry Working Group of the International Consortium for Innovation and Quality in Pharmaceutical Development. Yes, to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So, can you hear me? Yeah, it's okay. Thank you very much for this nice introduction, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Today, I would like to talk about the value creation we see at MSD, green and sustainable science in collaboration with the ACS Green Chemistry Institute Roundtable. As we all know, we only have one Earth, and we don't get more of it. But if we continue as we are continuing right now, we will need more, but we don't get it. So we really have to look into a sustainable future. So at MSD, we think that we will be expected, and we are expected, to meet the needs of patients around the world at a cost they can afford, and we have to minimize our environmental footprint. And we only can do this by balancing the social, environmental, and economic needs. And we have to do this globally, and we have to do this across generations, because we are responsible that our kids, that our grandkids, they still can enjoy life, and they have an Earth they can enjoy. So we are responsible. At MSD, we have a green and sustainable science team, and it's a very cross-functional team, as you can see. Sorry about that. It's chemistry, analytical chemistry, engineering, bioprocessing, manufacturing, and farm science. So we really try to be truly cross-functional. And we also, as all big pharmaceutical companies, we do have our environmental goals. In 2017, for the first time, we will have an environmental goals besides energy and water, greenhouse emissions. We will have an API-focused environmental goal for the first time. At Merck, we have quite a history of green chemistry. As you can see, MSD was able to win the Presidential Green Chemistry Challenge Award for 3 times, and we are very proud of that. And we want to continue our history and our tradition. We have external collaborations. They already were mentioned. It is the IQ Consortium. The IQ Consortium is innovation and quality in the pharmaceutical development, and this is a group which was generated and formed after the pharma group really changed its focus. So it's about 42 member companies. Many of them are pharmaceutical companies. This IQ Consortium is more than just CMC. It is clinical, it's quality, it's statistics, but it also has a CMC group, and within the CMC group is a green chemistry working group. And this green chemistry working group collaborates very closely with the ACS GCI Pharmaceutical Roundtable, but has 2 focus areas, and this is engagement with the FDA, and as well as the sharing of best practices, and this is educating chemists and engineers, in particular chemists and engineers who just start in industry. So we want to make sure that they do understand the concept and the principles of green and sustainable science, and we want to prepare them so that they can develop sustainable and greener processes. I want to focus on the collaboration we have with the ACS GCI Pharmaceutical Roundtable. As you have heard, MSD is a founding member, and we were there right from the beginning, and we have a very good relationship, and we do think that we really benefit a lot of this collaboration. And I'm just picking out some of the strategic areas collaborating globally. We already have heard that we have 3 meetings, and we have 1 meeting per year outside the US. And from an MSD perspective, I think these meetings are enormous value because this gives you an opportunity to talk to your colleagues, to really see what their perspective is in a pre-competitive environment, and really not reinventing the wheel, and being able to participate in developing innovative tools, and really having these discussions about the problems, because the pharmaceutical industries, we are all very similar. So it's very inspiring and very motivating, these meetings. And then we already have heard about the awards. These awards, I think, where we look for the gaps we currently see, gives you also the opportunity to work with the academics and to really shape it to what your needs are. So that from an MSD perspective, this is really a great opportunity to leverage academics, and then also to leverage them in a way that you benefit from it. So you can give out the grants, as we have heard, for example, with the emphasis of finding alternatives for precious metals, for example. So, Juan already has shown you that, for example, we gave out grants to look for iron, nickel, cobalt catalysis. And I think we all have similar problems. So these grants really give you a great opportunity to look for innovation, to drive innovation together with academics. Educating leaders, the third strategic area here, this gives access to training programs. So the ACS Green Chemistry Institute has developed very nice training materials for graduates, for undergraduates, for teachers, and then also in collaboration with the IQ Consortium, we have developed a course which is really focused on chemists, on engineers who just entered the industry, and it gives all the aspects which are really important so that you are able to develop greener and more sustainable processes. We have given these courses at national ACS meetings. We have given them with vendors, and they get tremendous feedback because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The training material is out there. Just make use of it. And then we already have talked about the different tools. And from an MSD perspective, these are very, very valuable. We do not want to reinvent the wheel. So if there is a solvent selection out there, we base our solvent selection on this one. We might have to adjust it a little bit, but we are not reinventing the wheel. The same is for the reagents guide or the process mass intensity calculator. So process mass intensity, I don't know if everybody is really familiar with it, but it is the input of all the materials divided by the product. So, for example, a number 500 as a PMI means that you put 500 kilograms into your process in order to get 1 kilogram out. So apparently, the lower the number, the better the PMI, process mass intensity. We have already talked about this one, where to apply it. So at MSD, what we do is for the early phases, we try everything to make them aware, like discovery people. We have solvent selection guides for discovery, which are on a higher level. It's, for example, green, yellow, red, very obviously telling them, okay, the green one you should use, this one is yellow, this is red. we communicate those, so we try to make them aware, also the reagent guides. What we also do is a part of these tools are integrated in our electronic notebooks, and this is really great because then it's at the fingertips of the chemists, and you know they are very competitive, so when they are getting too many of red flags because they are using all these red solvents, they start to think about it. So it's inspiring and motivating. When we go to phase 2 or phase 3, this is around when we come up with our manufacturing process, with the commercial manufacturing process. Within the last years, we make it mandatory now that these manufacturing processes have to meet certain criteria. And some of the criteria are related to green chemistry and sustainability. So they have to meet, for example, a certain PMI target. If they don't meet it, they will not be chosen as a manufacturing process. The same is the number of solvents, the number of red solvents, the number of hazardous materials. So we make it now mandatory. These processes cannot be manufacturing processes. And we are doing this because, as you already have said, that post-approval changes are very cumbersome. You have to go through a lot of additional validation work, a lot of cost, a lot of pain, and we made that decision that at MSD we set targets. These targets have to be met, otherwise it will not be a manufacturing process. And I will show you this as we have evolved with our sustainability strategy. I have a couple of slides showing you the evolvement. This is, I think, very impressive, and that should convince you that there is apparently a relationship between the PMI, the process mass intensity, and the cost. What you see here on this graph is the late-stage development compounds and marketed products from MSD. Not surprisingly, I can't show you any numbers here, but as you clearly can see, there is a relationship between the PMI, the amount of input of material per kilogram of API, and the cost. So I think it's worthwhile, and I will show you in my last slide, I will show you an example where you can see what the power is of really coming up with the better, a more sustainable, and a greener process with respect to the waste reduction as well as the improvement in costs. This is a very early example. This is isentress. This is a prescription human immunodeficiency virus, HIV-1 medicine. And as said, this was very early on when we were really focusing more or less on optimizing the PMI. And as this graph shows you very nicely what we already have heard from Joan, that mostly the composition is water and solvent. These are the contributor to your waste. As you can see, it's a 9-step synthesis, and our PMI was 265. And then we went through a couple of generations of the process. And as you can see is that we were able to about 40% improvement in PMI. And what you can see on that slide is if you then start to recover your solvent, you can further decrease your PMI. So we went from 265 finally to 126. But as said, these were incremental changes. These were, for example, using less solvent, or using maybe through development, but it wasn't really so much innovative chemistry. We then evolved, and in the next example, that's Januvia. This is against diabetes. This is where I think one of the first examples where we were able to come up with very innovative chemistry, which is shown on the next slide. And this is the transaminase, which we are using here, where we are converting a ketone directly into the chyolamine. The way we did this before was we reduced an enamine here with the rhodium catalyst. And as we know, rhodium is not unlimited. And then we made that decision that we will look for something more sustainable and greener. And this was the transaminase. And I think it's interesting to know that in the very first experiments when we were using the transaminase, and MSD did this in collaboration with Codexis, we saw about 1% of conversion. But this 1% of conversion had a very high enantiomeric excess. And that gave us the hint that this might be development, that we could develop this. And after 7 evolutions, we were able to come up with a transaminase with a very high EE, about 99.9, and with in very high chemical yield as well. So we are not using any metals. We don't have need for any special equipment because our chiral hydrogenation was a high pressure hydrogenation. So I think this was one of our